Welcome to the Theater Podcast, intimate personal conversations with theater's biggest names. I'm your host, Alan Seals, and unfortunately, Jillian is on vacation this week, so I'm by myself. I just got out of the interview with Andrew Barth Feldman, and oh my gosh, that kid is so self-aware. 17 years old. His first professional acting gig ever is going into his dream role as Evan Hansen in Dear Evan Hansen. Just phenomenal conversation. The guy was talking to me and having a level of conversation that I'm used to having with some of my adult friends that I think some of my adult friends might not actually even be able to to carry on, which I don't know what that says either about me or my friends. Sorry, friends. Anyway, but he's a humble kid living his dream, and I think this speaks to his level of maturity. I think speaks to what's happening now with kids, and especially teenagers now who have just grown up. They don't have to beg their parents for a phone anymore. You know, what he said was he was the end of a group of kids who didn't have to beg their parents for phones. Everybody just gets one now. That's how parents feel safe. Sending their kids out with a phone. We're just kind of getting used to carrying the internet in our pocket, and we go deep into how Evan Hansen is kind of bringing to light a lot of what kids feel, or maybe what they're afraid to talk about, or even for parents, it's allowing them to sort of empathize with their children in a way that we weren't really able to in the past. So it speaks to him, the show and the role speaks to him on a very personal level. He was always attracted to it, and just out of, gosh, half luck, half talent. Stacey, Mindich, lead producer for Dear Evan Hansen, saw him win the Jimmy Awards and basically bypassed a whole bunch of audition processes to send him to the equivalent of a final callback. And long story short, here he is on stage 6 months in, crushing it. So anyway, sorry to ramble on at the end of the interview, too, about Disney. We share a huge mutual love for Disney World, but stay through the closing questions. I promise it will be worth it. He gives an impression of someone that you don't want to miss. Before we get into the interview, please take a moment and visit ttp.fm and go to ttp.fm/Patreon to show your support. If you're at a certain tier, you can get advance notice of who we're interviewing, so you can submit questions. Other tiers get other reward levels. There's lots and lots of good stuff in there. So everybody, please enjoy this episode with Andrew Barth Feldman.
Here you go. 1, 2, 3.
After winning the 2018 Jimmy Award for Best Performance by an Actor, he found his way at the age of 16 into the title role of Evan Hansen in Dear Evan Hansen, his first professional gig ever. Andrew Barth Feldman, welcome to the Theater Podcast.
Thank you so much for having me. This is going to be fun.
Are you just living your best life these days?
Yeah. I mean, it's not, it's the dream and it's everything I've ever wanted, but it's also as exhausting as I'd prepared for it to be, I think. So it's everything I've ever wanted, but it's not like I'm super good and that's it. I'm working my butt off, All
right, so are you able to do 8 shows a week?
No, Evan does 8 shows a week. So I do the standard 6. I started doing 5 because I was in school, and of course my voice is still developing. So they really made sure to ease me into it so as to account for my more long-term success.
Yeah, so you alternate with Michael Lee Brown?
Yeah.
And you're the primary. Okay, cool. Yeah, so if you were able to do 8 shows a week, would you be able to legally? Because there's child labor laws.
So I bypass a lot of the child labor laws, not all of them, but I don't need like a wrangler. I don't need a guardian with me at the theater. I can't work more than 10 hours a day, I think is what it is. It's like from start to finish, it can't be 10 hours. But other than that, I bypass, I think, I've aged out of the majority of the
You're 17
laws.
now.
Yeah.
Yeah. So would be a junior in high school.
Yeah. I'm going into my senior year.
Well,
yeah.
Are you still in high school?
So yeah, pretty much. So I have been tutored while this has all been going on. The show has provided tutoring for me, which is what a lot of kids do. So I tutored through my junior year, and I'm going to do it for a lot of my senior year.
Do you
and
think
graduate and
do you
finish.
think you're going to be in Evan Hansen like through your whole senior year, or is it?
You know,
I mean, are you still technically enrolled in high school? Are you going to get to go to your senior prom and all
yeah,
that?
I mean, I could. I probably won't because I don't really want to. But it's
Really?
no. I a lot of people ask like, do I feel like I'm missing out? Do I feel like I'm missing out that I'm not going to prom and stuff? And not really. My friends, the majority of the time, I made outside of school in theater, and certainly I have friends in school, but my school's very small, so it doesn't feel like it's like such a huge thing to be not going to prom. So. But I'll be tutored and I'll finish my senior year that way, presumably.
Well, you mentioned high school and your friends outside of high school. I guess your theater friends are your best friends. That's your tribe, I guess, for a lack of a better description. But like you're still young. You're 17 now. But when did you first start singing? When did you get into theater and performing?
Yeah. So I saw my first show when I was 3 years old. I saw Beauty and the Beast on Broadway, and I was I was very mature for a 3-year-old, and I
Is that Chris Sieber? Was he?
he was in it. I don't remember if he was in the original cast, but he did. I know he did play Gaston at some point. But I saw it. It was at the Palace Theater, and I didn't. My brain. It was just sort of the switch that turned on in my brain that was like, oh, I get what's happening here. Like we're being invited to step into another world, and I was obsessed with that. Even though I didn't really fully understand it on an articulate level, I really just something instinctual happened when I saw it. And like 5 years later, I was 8 years old, and somebody said, hey, there's this community theater, they're doing a production of Annie, do you want to go audition? And I was like, this is a thing we can just do? Like we can just go to a place and do this? We don't have to be chosen by God or something? And so I played Mr. Bundles, the laundryman, in the worst production of Annie ever. I was 8 years old, and I was like, "Yeah, this is what I want to do forever."
Where was that?
I don't even remember.
Do you remember
It was. I live on Long Island, so it was
Yeah.
in like the 5 towns, maybe like Valley Stream or something. I don't know, but it was. But up until that point, I didn't really understand how to get into that world, and I just sort of lived my life as if it were a movie. Like I just sort of narrated in my head things that were like I really would talk to myself, and that
you
was
are
kind of how it
17-year-old
was.
me. Yeah, I would always pretend that someone was watching me.
Exactly.
Yeah,
That
Yeah.
was up until I discovered theater. Up until I discovered that I could go and be a part of it, and it wasn't such an unattainable thing.
but
That
you're
was
kind of a
my
techie
life.
nerd too. Let me ask you if you did the same thing that I did. I imagine someone was watching me, but I imagine they were watching me from the future.
Whoa, that's really good.
So like I was always like, when I was just standing in a room by myself, I was always like posing, not really posing, but I was like, I wonder what they're thinking of me right now from 20 years from now, like watching me do this,
I kind of had like very much like a child's understanding of life and its longevity, and I imagined it as if it were like a movie and there was an audience and it was like scripted. That was how I understood life until I became a part of theater. That was really how I made sense of it all. And so I guess I imagined it more of like an audience, and then eventually there would be an end. And I don't know, but it was like that was just kind of how I processed it.
Wow. Yeah. I totally relate to that. But as you grew up, though, were you like the class clown, or were you the quiet guy who found comfort on stage, or were you the attention seeker that just found a natural spot on stage?
Yeah, I think once I discovered being a part of theater, that's when I really became like a total jerk and like an attention snob for like all of elementary school. I was the worst because I was just like, oh, I love this, and I would like. There was like an assembly every week, and I would always perform and like get people together and do a huge thing. But before that, my mom always tells these stories of when I was in like nursery school, there were these performances that we would have to do, and I would refuse to stand up. Like everyone had to like was sitting, and then they would stand up and sing a song. I would not stand up. I refused. I sat in the back. There were pictures, and so I was up until that point, I was definitely not a rambunctious kid. I was I guess pretty quiet.
You had to get comfortable in your
Yeah.
surroundings first.
Exactly.
Yeah. So then after Annie, what was next after that? I mean, you started performing in middle school, high school.
Yeah. I right after that, so I auditioned for a production of Beauty and the Beast Junior, and I didn't know, I had never auditioned for anything because Annie was like a very young kids production, so it wasn't like a traditional audition process. But this was like a traditional audition process, and they were like, "Do you have any idea what you want to sing?" And I was like, "No, I don't know." And they made me sing "Be Our Guest," and I kind of knew it, and I got cast as LeFou. And this was like, that was when I was, oh, this is what I'm gonna do. I can be funny. I can make people laugh in a really stupid way by being like hit on the head and stuff. And so that was sort of when I found my aisle. But also from that, I was asked by the director and producer of that show to be in a touring, quotes around touring, production of A Christmas Carol, which went to like different libraries around Long Island. But it was adults. It was with adults. And that was when I think I grew up so much because I started doing those touring or whatever productions of that. And then I did Bye Bye Birdie and a lot of those from the same theater company that also sort of became a second home to me. And so that was when I grew up a lot, but also found my knack for comedy, which is really what I grew up doing.
Well, interesting, because Evan Hansen, known for its comedy.
People don't remember how funny the show actually is, and I've been able to find a couple of new comedic moments or bring some back from Ben that Taylor sort of did away with to focus on a different point of the show, and I just have a knack for that, and I know Taylor does too, but he really so made that his own, and I sort of have taken them all together and blended them into one, and I get to bring some comedy to him, which I'm really happy about.
That's fun. Well, let's talk about Dear Evan Hansen. How did you get into the production? How were you asked to audition?
Yeah,
tell me the story.
It came from the Jimmy Awards, which you mentioned before. I was a part of that, which is the National High School Musical Theater Awards for people who may or may not know, and I won that, and it was sponsored by Dear Evan Hansen. So Stacey Mindich, our lead producer, was in the audience, as well as Tara Rubin, the casting director, was one of the judges. And apparently, according to her side of the story, at intermission, Stacey texted Tara and was like, "We need to get him in the room. I think he's our next Evan." And that was crazy to me because Dear Evan Hansen was my favorite show. It is my favorite show. From the moment I saw it, I was speechless. I think it really articulated something that I hadn't been able to articulate. And so that was really special to me. And so I got an email a few days later that they wanted me to come in and audition for the male swing. So I would be covering the roles of Evan, Jared, and Connor. Really, they were just looking at me for Evan, but they wanted to keep their options open, I suppose. And I talked to some other people who had been through the ringer with Dear Evan Hansen, and they see everyone. They do so many open calls. They see as many kids as they can because it's such a specific thing that this role requires. And pretty much from what these people who had been through it before were telling me was that I'd skipped the process. What they'd asked me to do was a work session, and then essentially what would be the final callback with Michael Greif, Stephen Levinson, Pasek and Paul, Alex Lacamoire, Stacey, the whole team. And that was ridiculous to me. It was so mind-blowing. And so I went and I did the work session. I did the audition, and I was so nervous. And I remember I walked in, and Michael Greif says, "Why don't you do a little bit of waving for us?" And I said, "Okay, thank you." And they laughed, and I said, "I'm just really excited to be here." And I think that might have been when I got the role, because that was I just was so nervous, but so happy to be in the room. And that was really it. I got a call the next day that said, "They're going to find a place for you in the Dear Evan Hansen family." And I was like, I don't know what that means. But then the day after, my mom told me that she had been on the phone with my agent and that I was going to be replacing Taylor, which was nuts.
That's crazy. Well, okay, so back up a second. So you already had an agent.
I did.
Yeah, so you already had an agent. You were already talented enough and noticed enough to be in the Jimmy Awards, because not everyone can do that.
That was really special, yeah.
So I guess, like, when did you know you were kind of like, hey, I can do this?
I don't think I know that now. I think it's kind of, I just knew that I really wanted to, and I knew that I had, if nothing else, the determination that I was going to work and grow forever until I got there. So even if I didn't have the skills then, I was going to take every opportunity I could to grow those skills and hone those skills so that one day I could be on Broadway. It just happened way sooner than I or anyone thought that it would, and I'm just so thankful for that.
Well, yeah, like I said in the intro, this is your first professional gig ever.
I've never been paid to do this.
Never been paid, and you're thrust into, let me check my notes here so I don't get it wrong, Ms. Mojo, the YouTube channel. Have you heard of that?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So they put out, in February, I think it was pretty recently, a list of top 10 hardest roles on Broadway.
This video was so controversial. Everyone was so mad about this video. I remember it.
Yeah, Evan Hansen's number 2.
It's number 2. I think number 1 was Christine?
Mama Rose.
Oh, yes. Or maybe people are mad that Christine wasn't on the list or something. I don't remember. It was. I just remember that video being very controversial. But yes, it was number 2.
So never being paid before. You've got an agent who I guess hadn't booked you anything paying yet.
Yeah, we I'd been to a lot of auditions, but it was just smaller stuff, and people weren't interested in me. Once the Jimmys happened, it was like I went to do like a zillion auditions because everyone was wondering who these kids were, me and Renee, and so yeah, that was crazy.
Well, you were auditioning for other stuff while still doing all the callbacks and the pre-work for Evan.
Yeah, the Evan thing, it was really just that one callback, and it was sort of the last thing I did, and then I was like, I guess I'm not gonna audition for stuff anymore. But
one callback.
Yeah, that's.
I guess one audition. It wasn't even a callback.
Yeah, it was. That was truly insane that they took that chance on me. It was so special. I think something that I was proud to exemplify in my audition was my ability to take notes and change my performance based on that. And I think they sort of saw, okay, if he can do this in the room and he can take notes, he can do this.
Mm-hmm.
And we will train him and make sure he's okay. And they really did. So
that was Michaela's story too. They called her in for Cher Show. Michaela Diamond. They're like, they just wanted to see if she could take notes.
Yeah. I think they in the work session, they really threw me a couple things to make sure that I could do that. And that's just such an important skill to have in this business, especially the way that it is right now, where theater is so much more internal, musical theater is so much more internal than it's ever been. And so I think that's so important to be able to change your performance at the drop of a hat to fit a bigger picture.
Mm-hmm. You said a second or a few minutes ago that Evan Hansen was your favorite show before you even went into it because it articulated something that you were feeling. Is that what you said?
Yeah, and I don't struggle with a diagnosis of anxiety or depression, and I'm very lucky and very thankful for that. But I was a teenager, and I am a teenager, and that anxiety and that isolation is something that we all feel at any level of maturity or emotional maturity. That's something that we're experiencing for the first time. I think it's something that everybody knows very well. And it was my first experience with that being articulated in that way. And I was speechless.
Yeah. Yeah, it did shed a lot of light on, teen depression and teen suicide specifically.
Yeah. That
hadn't got attention before. But yeah, kudos for you for seeing all that. I didn't have broadband, high-speed internet until I went to college. You looked at me like, what's broadband? Yeah.
I was trying to figure out where you were going with this. And yeah,
I didn't have broadband, high-speed internet, cable modem until I went to college, which was 1998. I was 17 at the time. So that was when I was already in college. I already left my parents. But kids now, like all through high school, your age and before,
we're born with it.
I didn't have Facebook. I didn't have Instagram. I didn't have Vine. I didn't have Snap, whatever all the kids are doing these days. And the level of exposure that you're subject to now, like I have 2 small kids and I worry about them.
Yeah.
I worry because I my older one especially is very sensitive and I don't want him to be bullied and feel like you can't talk about it or not understand what it is.
I mean, that's what the show's about.
Yeah.
That's what it is the generation who's born with an iPhone in their hand and feels that isolation from that hyperconnectivity. I was sort of the very, very end of the generation that had to like beg my mom for a phone. Everyone you have to have it now because it feels like you won't be safe. You won't be safe unless you have it. Unless like for kids, like if you're gonna go out, you need to have a phone now. That's why so many parents like their kids have to have it now. So I started with the flip phone so I could be safe. But
the razor.
yeah, it's terrible. I still have it. I throw it at the wall and it doesn't break. It's amazing. But yeah, so I just that feeling of, oh my God, everyone's life is better than mine that you get from the internet is something that is so universal now. And it's something that's such a central theme of our show.
God, kids now are going to grow up so much better than I did. Look, what you said, I don't even know if I had the wherewithal to say about that. Say that now. I'm 38 now, and I still very similarly to what you said a second ago of like, and everybody feels isolation and sort of like an outcast at any stage of maturity. And I at 38, I don't feel how I would have expected myself to feel at 38. Like looking back at my younger self and thinking, oh, my 38-year-old parents. I would have expected them to be a certain way or feel a certain way, and I still feel like a kid inside. I still feel like
totally
I'm in my 20s mentally.
You never stop figuring stuff out, you know? I think that goes without saying. And it's something that I've discovered so much from being in the show with all these veterans of the stage who are so incredible. They still are like, I can't figure this out. I can't figure this one moment out, or I can't, I want to change this up. It's amazing. And it's also so encouraging for me that I'm like, okay, I'm not the only one that's screwing up here, So it never stops. And I think that's something that kids need to know a lot. And it's definitely something that Dear Evan Hansen says through the characters of Heidi and Cynthia and Larry that they don't know what they're doing. And that's so important that we rely on our parents so much, but they're figuring out just as much as we are.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I mean, the show opens with anybody have a map,
Exactly.
right? Like the parents have no clue what they're doing.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's interesting to me. I don't envy my parents because I was a rough first child. I'm the older of two. My brother could do anything he wanted.
Oh yeah.
And then I was always I was always getting him mad and making him angry. And then it's even my older one too. My younger one, my wife says that I am lenient on the younger one, but I don't think so. He just knows what buttons not to push because he learns from the older one. But in Evan Hansen, so you're coming in first professional gig. This is now a job. It's not a limited run.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. It's community theater and that echelon, right? You rehearse for months. And you have like 2 weeks of performances.
Do it like twice maybe.
Yeah.
If
that.
Yeah.
But this is 8 shows a week. You said you did six now, right?
6, yeah.
So how do you maintain your health? Was there anything like surprising about this when you got in? You're like, I can do anything, and then you get in and it's not the same.
Yeah, I think Ben Platt set such a precedent for you can't do anything. Like that was his whole thing when he was. All the articles, everything about Ben said he just sits and he's a monk and he doesn't talk. And it's like, okay, I guess that's what I have to do. And I got there and everyone was like, yeah, that's what you're going to have to do. And I was like, okay, I guess that's what I'm going to do. And that's what I do. So I don't talk. I found that talking lightly a little bit. So like, this is fine because talking lightly a little bit helps so that I'm not starting from scratch when I get to the theater and having to warm everything up from nothing. But yeah, my diet is super restrictive. I think that's the thing is that it's way more restrictive than I thought it was going to be. And I'm having way more of a problem with that than I thought I was going to have. I essentially eat the same thing every day.
Which is what?
Now it goes through phases, but right now I eat sushi for lunch, it's avocado, mango, and shrimp rolls. Those are all super good things that I can have. And then for dinner, it's an avocado and roast beef sandwich. There's nothing else on the sandwich. It is avocado and it's roast beef. And avocado is really good. Avocado is like the Liz Kaplan, who's our folk consultant on the show. She swears by it. Avocado gives you energy. It's not acidic. It's not alkaline. You can have it. But yeah, I've tried a lot of other things. And then she was like, you can't be eating that. And I was like, oh, okay, I guess I'll stop eating that. That was with a lot of stuff. But I remember during the rehearsal process, I hadn't really started the diet yet. And I guess I was trying stuff out. So I had a burrito like every day. And then eventually I was like, this is not working for me.
That's heavy.
Yeah.
It's a heavy meal.
Hey, when you're playing this role, you got to eat. Lisa Brescia had said something to me that was like, when she was playing Elphaba, she was essentially starving herself because she was like, I can't eat. And then eventually she was feeling like lightheaded, like she couldn't do it. And she was like, oh, I need to eat like a burger every day to get through this role. You need that,
the
that protein. You need that fuel. So it's finding the balance of not eating so much that I'm still digesting it and it's not screwing with my voice, but eating enough that I have fuel. So there's like protein bars, and dark chocolate's actually really good for your voice.
Really?
And it's okay for your voice in moderation, and it gives you a lot of energy. So those are the two sort of mid-show snacks that I have.
So just chow down on like a Mars dark bar in intermission.
Yep. I have. It's actually the one I have now it's Girardelli like 87% cacao, which is kind of gross, but yeah, it's good for it. It gives me energy for sure.
That's crazy. And then you cut out dairy too. You were saying
I did, which was really hard for me. Every Sunday, Liz has said I'm allowed to have a little treat, so I'll have some cheesecake. I call it Cheesecake Sunday every Sunday. But other than that, because I don't have a show on Monday, so I can wait a day.
Mm-hmm.
But other than that, yeah, that was really hard for me because that was sort of my whole diet was gross dairy.
Well, yeah, you're a teenager.
Exactly.
Like, yeah, you just want like burgers and cake and
because I can, you know.
Right. Yeah, before your metabolism just all goes to hell.
Yeah, I'm not excited for that.
I don't think you're gonna have to worry about that. You look like you have a very
you.
skinny build.
That's what it's been my whole life thus far. Is my metabolism is really, really high, which is great.
Well, keep it going.
I hope I can.
Did you get to talk with Ben or obviously you replaced Taylor, so you had some overlap with him. But did either of them? Did they give you any advice or any help on? You were like, oh, I don't know what I'm doing, guys.
Yeah, you know, it's funny. Something that they've both said is they held off from giving me advice because they know how personal the process is, and they don't want to impose upon that and me finding my own Evan. So it's pretty rare that they gave advice on, you know, how to approach the character. It was more advice on how to approach this lifestyle of playing the character and what the world of Evan Hansen is. So the people that I would get to know and how to deal with the tears and how to deal with the social media aspect of, you know, maybe getting some negative comments. They were both unbelievably helpful in just making sure I had I was mentally and emotionally prepared to go into it. But it was rare that unless I asked for it, they wouldn't give me advice that was about how to play Evan. It was more just about how to handle him.
Yeah, I didn't think about that. That it's. I mean, you're birthing your own version of it. You're not. It's such a personal role that you're not doing the Taylor. You're not doing the Ben.
And you can't. If I try to be Ben, I would fail. I have to be my Evan. I can't try to be Ben. I can't try to be Taylor, and I can't try to be me. I just have to try to be Evan and what he means to me.
Well, okay. So then, what is your take on Evan different to what the two of them did?
Yeah, I mean, you know, from an obvious base perspective, what people have really seemed to respond to is just seeing a teenager and just removing that layer of disbelief that you might have is really, I think, really powerful to see. So even if I don't do anything else, it's still a kid going through this, and that's really, really hard to watch. And I think it allows for a bit more forgiveness, which is, I think, so crucial and really special, and I'm really thankful for that. But I think in terms of how I play him, I think my Evan is very sensitive. He's a lot more sensitive than, you know, Ben's, where stuff almost would fly past him because he's so in his head about what may or may not happen. And I think my Evan sort of goes into more in the direction of, oh, okay, you said that, you could have meant this, or just really, really perceptive. And I think it's a bit more, for me, it allows me to be as present as possible because I'm really, really listening. Ben's was so iconic, and I just couldn't. I didn't want to replicate that, and so that's sort of what I found. That's how his anxiety manifested itself to me was in that perception.
Okay. Yeah, that I haven't seen you do the role. I would absolutely love to because you're right. It to see age appropriate characters or age appropriate actors play the characters. I think.
Yeah, I think the biggest response has been from parents, which has been really cool.
Oh, really?
Because they've sort of been like, or teachers or people who have a lot of kids in their life, and they're like, now I get it. Like I don't want these kids to go through that. I know this. Or people who work with special ed kids especially are really, really touched by it because they imagine what it would be like if one of those kids that they work with or have in their life would go through the things that Evan does.
Well, so many people do. And they never
it's
talk
so
about
true.
it.
It's so true. And I think this really opened up that conversation of knowing someone who might go through that. It's so scary to think about.
Do you read comments on social media?
I try not to,
Really?
but I fail sometimes, and that really is hard. The majority is positive. People, you'd have to be pretty bad to not do this role well. It's so hard, but it's written so well that it's certainly not easy. But if you do it and you push yourself to do it, you can do it effectively. Maybe not as effectively as Ben or Taylor, whoever plays the role on Broadway, but you can deliver it and you can make people feel something. But absolutely, there are people who are like, he's not Ben, and that's really hard. And I definitely get in my head on a daily basis and feel that doubt of maybe I'm not right for this, and maybe there was a mistake made somewhere along the line and I shouldn't be here. But nevertheless, I go out and I do it, and if nothing else, I use it because that's what Evan's feeling.
Right. Well, you've got 74,000 Instagram followers
so
now.
Weird.
And has that all come about in the last 6 months since you joined, or
Yeah.
since the announcement, I guess, that you were going to be Evan?
We were playing a game. My family and my girlfriend were all there the day of the announcement that I was going to be Evan, which was last November, and we just kept refreshing my Instagram literally every second, and it just kept going up. It was crazy, and it was so funny, and it's nice. It's nice that people care. This is a role that it matters whose hands it's in to people. It's one of those roles. It's like an Elphaba. That's what I tend to equate it to a lot. We really care about who's playing Elphaba, and we really care about who's playing Evan. So yeah, it's nice to have that audience. And hopefully I can use it to, put out some stupid things into the world. We'll see.
Well, what else do you do outside of theater? I mean, do you have any hobbies that you're allowed to have time for right now?
Yeah. I sort of the quiet activities I do that are sort of to occupy my mind are things like Legos, which we talked about earlier. I build Legos. I'm working on a city right now. I just did Hogwarts. That was a big project. Legos, video games, but I write a lot. I pretty much all my hobbies involve theater, are a part of theater. So I've directed in the past. I run a theater company that I started, I guess, 6 years ago now, called Rock Productions, which raises money for Next for Autism, which is an amazing organization. And I've directed and I've written for it, and so I write a lot. I write a lot of music. That's a nice activity to do. If usually I'm pretty emotionally drained after the show, but if I'm feeling particularly emotional about the show or after the show or what have you, writing is a really good way to get rid of that.
You write prose or music? What do you
Music,
write?
yeah. I write music.
You play guitar?
Guitar, piano, a couple of instruments, mostly piano, but I know-ish guitar, drums, bass, ukulele. That's it, I think.
Self-taught, or do you ever take lessons?
I took lessons in guitar and piano when I was a lot younger, but mostly I ended up teaching myself how to write and theory and stuff like that.
That's so cool. Yeah, I normally ask this to guests, and we kind of glossed around it. But your parents, are they musically inclined? Are they in theater or
No? My grandmother on my dad's side was a concert pianist. So my dad used to play a lot, and he introduced me to a lot of the music that I listened to, like classic rock is a lot of my, like the Beatles and Queen and that sort of genre is really, really my sweet spot. My mom, absolutely not, never. She was never into it. I have a brother. He's really my cousin, but we were essentially raised together. So who is like crazy musician, amazing musician. So it just sort of has come up at random spots in my family. I have another cousin who's an actress and plays the cello. For no particular reason, it just kind of finds itself in my family. But my mom did not want me to do this. She did not want me to be an actor. She thought I was going to struggle for years and not make any money and not be able to have a family. But I think what we have now is a really good start. So I'm very thankful for that. But yeah, I really wanted to go to a conservatory for college. And my mother is a college admissions counselor. And she was like, absolutely not. You need a liberal arts education. She was absolutely right. That's what I needed. And that's what I plan to do.
So you're still going to go back to college?
That's the plan. Yeah. Even if it takes a little bit longer because I'm working or whatnot. But I do want that experience. And I think that's such a formative thing, and I think I would really miss out on that if I didn't.
Are there any other roles that like has popped in mind of, obviously Evan Hansen is a teenager. Are there any other roles that popped to mind that you like obsessed over or that you were like love to sing?
I have a list. I mean,
do you really?
Because I'm a theater nerd. I think a lot of us have a list. I think the one that I usually say, and I stand by it, is Quasimodo in Hunchback. I almost got my school to do it, and then I did Dear Evan Hansen instead. But that would have been really cool. I think I love Little Shop of Horrors, and Seymour, I would love to play Seymour, but secretly I would really love to play Audrey too, even though I know that's not a thing that could ever happen to me. Yeah, I mean, there's so many. I think what I'd love to do more than anything else is originate a role in a Broadway show. I think just to be part of a new show and be on a cast recording and just love a new piece of work and give it my stamp would be really special.
And everybody compares all the replacements to you.
Yeah, that's my revenge.
It's like, take that, Ben Platt. He'll go in and fill your role one day.
Oh yeah, sure.
But you said you're into Legos. I was looking through your Instagram feed and you post a lot about Disney.
I do. Oh, I would love to talk about this.
Yes, please.
Yeah, that was sort of another thing that was like, I went to Disney World for the first time when I was 6 months old. I went because my parents promised my sister that nothing would change when I was born. And so my first movie I ever saw was Mr. Deeds with Adam Sandler because they promised they would take her. And so it was that sort of thing. So I went
What's the age difference with you and your sister?
She's 12 years older than me.
Okay.
So she was 12 when I was born. And so we went to Disney, our whole family. I don't remember it. I was asleep the whole time. But it just sort of, that's the foundation that was laid of escapism. Because that's really what Disney's all about is this is another universe. And I think that there's such an overlap there with theater of when I saw Beauty and the Beast, I was like, this is another way to get there, you know? And so I'm just obsessed with it. And I can't explain it. I think it's just I think Disney just gives that feeling of perfection in the world. If you can turn a blind eye, which I can and do, to the corporationness, the capitalism of the whole situation, which that's going to be, you know, part of anything. Mm-hmm. I think Disney is art, and it's just it's just so magical. And I'm a big connoisseur of the parks specifically, but really the whole brand. I eat it up. I absolutely eat it up.
Well, they they put so much into the entire experience. They do make it an experience.
It's so immersive.
And yeah, it's very immersive. Like even the lines, the cues, right?
Yes.
Like just waiting. There's games. The whole thing is themed. Where you go to other theme parks and you don't get any. It's just a boring.
It's just like a roller coaster that you go on, and that's great. And I love that too. I'm super duper. I'm totally like an adrenaline junkie, and I love coasters. I love doing crazy weird stuff. But Disney is just you. It's the easiest way to suspend your disbelief because there's no way out of it. There's no way to look at what's behind the curtain because they do such a good job of covering up the curtain in the first place.
Yeah.
It's amazing. And I can't wait to go and see what they've done with Galaxy's Edge with the new Star Wars land because it's supposed to be totally groundbreaking. I can't
really.
Yeah. I'm really excited about it.
Yeah, I've gone every year, at least once a year with my kids. So they're not into Star Wars yet. They're still too young, but we'll get there. They're into. We went to Toy Story Land this year.
I love it. I think they did such a good job. Yeah, it's great. Yeah,
and you like animatronics too, right? Like
I'm super into animatronics.
Like, on the Instagram feed, you're just posting animatronics. Yeah, I love that stuff.
I think it's unbelievable what they can do now. Apparently, the new rumor is that with the new Marvel lands that they're building, they're going to use something called stuntronics, which are animatronics that can like do flips in the air and like land. They're using it for movies now, and they're going to use it in the parks for Marvel lands.
Oh, what's the Boston Dynamic, the robotics company? Boston Dynamics?
Yeah, that's one.
When they're like hitting it with the hockey stick and closing the doors on it. That's what I picture. I picture like that kind of robot just coming up and doing flips.
They're also it would be so weird, but I would be very interested to see it. And it would work with Marvel because, you don't have to have the mouths move or whatever for like a Spider-Man sort of thing. So I think it would be really cool.
Oh, I can't wait for that. I did not know. I'm going to have to go research stunt animatronics.
It's just always like what they did with Pandora recently, the Avatar land, the animatronics they have there. Like, you can't distinguish it from a real... I mean, there's nothing real to compare it to. It's blue people, but it's,
if they were real people,
if that's what it would be. It's nuts.
Yeah, I am so impressed with that. If you were not doing theater, though, would you get into computer science? Would you get into to animatronics? Would you want to go be an Imagineer for Disney?
Yeah, we were talking about that. So I think I sort of had this idea when I was young. My family really was like, you could be a computer programmer because we don't want you to be an actor because I don't think that's a steady job. And you should do it like on the side or whatever, but like as a backup plan, you can go into programming because you know a lot about computers. What I soon learned is that I know a lot about computers compared to my family because they're older and don't know about it. I did take some classes. I did take some programming classes, and I just quickly realized I can't do this. I can't live my life behind a desk. I don't think I could do that my whole life. And I was pretty optimistic about it up until that point. And it was when I was sort of at a point where, okay, maybe acting isn't such a good idea and maybe I'm not cut out for this. But it sort of came at a time when I started to become more and more confident in my acting from being able to play new roles. I'd always played these comedic roles. And then all of a sudden I played Galileo in We Will Rock You. And it was the first role that I'd been given where I was able to belt my face off and wear a leather jacket. And it will never happen to me ever again because I look like this. But it was sort of, I'm good at this. I'm good enough at this that I could maybe make this work. And I don't like sitting behind a desk and typing and making snake games all day. So I think I'm not going to do that. So in reality, I think if this didn't work out, I would probably be a Jungle Cruise skipper, I think is what I would be doing.
I love the jokes on that ride. I always have to go on the Jungle Cruise.
It's good to see each person's take on it. And I really love it when you can tell they don't want to be doing that this is not the job that they wanted at Disney World and they're phoning it in. That's my favorite kind of Jungle Cruise skipper.
I was going to say, I can always tell who's really into it and who's like, all right, I'm just saying my lines. Here we go. Because I think that deadpan shtick is what makes it work.
That's what's so great
Yeah,
about it.
yeah.
It's because the Jungle Cruise started as like, whoa, these animatronics are so cool. And then over time, people were like, these animatronics are not cool. And so they added all those jokes in so that they didn't have to change the ride. And they could just make a joke out of these bad old animatronics, which I think is so cool.
Oh, I didn't know that. Oh,
Yeah.
I bet you're like full of Disney trivia.
I am. There's my favorite ride is the Haunted Mansion.
Mm-hmm.
And in addition to having it memorized, like the Ghost Host script, there's this book that the Imagineers wrote. That's how it was made, and I'm like obsessed with it, with its history. It's awesome. I'll do another podcast for you if you want, just about the Haunted Mansion.
Oh, dude. Please, can we do a bonus content episode? Let's do a bonus
I would
episode
love
about
to.
Haunted Mansion.
I would really love to do that.
All right.
I'm in.
Yeah, well, my grandfather helped build Disney World.
That's so cool.
He was, well, what do they call him? An estimateur. He was a project manager.
Oh, wow.
And he had to figure out how much all the rides were going to cost.
Oh, I think you talked about this with Michael Lee Brown, because
Yes.
he's also
Yes.
a huge Disney fan, and we bonded over that very quickly. Yeah, that's so cool.
Yeah. Yeah. So he promised to tell me some secrets that he didn't, and now he's gone. But oh well.
Oh, no.
So I'll read the book. But
Yeah.
no, we should do that. Okay. So well, let's see. Anything else we want to cover? Cool. Yeah. So we'll wrap up here, and we'll just go to our standard 3 closing questions. So first one, very simply, what motivates you?
Ooh, I think the thing that helps me on a daily basis is to look back like a year from now and see what I was doing. And when I was cast in Dear Evan Hansen, I was playing Mr. Toad in Wind in the Willows. This happened the week of the show, and I was like, got the call that I was going to do it, and then I had to play Mr. Toad at night, and it was like the voice of that character was like poop poop, like that was the whole. And I was like, this is what I'm doing right now, and a year from now I'll be. So to look back at that is kind of like, how could I not be thankful? Because this is all I've ever wanted, and how could I not be motivated by that? And then it's just sort of when I meet kids at the stage door who it means so much to them, or when I get to do a workshop or a Q&A or something with some teenagers, that's really special. Because I'm like, they're working so hard, and that's how hard I was working, and I should never be working any less than that.
Can you give me a line from waving through the window as Mr. Toad?
Oh yeah, I've learned to slam on the brake. I just saw the director of this the other day. Before I even turn the key. It's actually pretty applicable because he's very obsessed with cars, so that works a little bit. But he crashes them, so I guess he hasn't learned before I make the mistake. It's like the Duke of Wesselton from Frozen.
Oh, yes.
That was really my basis for the voice.
Wesselton. Yeah. Okay, so the second question. What advice would you give to your younger self? Not that you're that old. What advice would you give to your younger self and younger people now listening, starting out down a similar path?
Yeah, I think I'm really proud of my younger self for working as hard as I did, and not never giving up on it, and recognizing that there's room to grow. And I think that's the number one thing that all young people wanting to get into this business need to know, is that you're not the best. You're just not. You're not better than anyone else in the room. You might not. You just need to work hard, and you'll never be the best person in the room because everyone has something different to bring to the table. But you just need, if you want to be quote unquote good enough to get into this business, you just need to keep working, and you can get there. And there's no reason to think that you can't, even if it takes you, however long. As long as you keep growing, there's no limit to how much you can grow. But I think to my younger self, I would just want to say to keep doing it, I guess, and never feel ashamed or don't get distracted by just work, I think, and enjoy it. I think that's probably really important, and that's probably what I would say is enjoy it as much as you can.
Cool. And then last question. If you could only see one show for the rest of your life, but you can see it as many times as you want, what would you see?
Whoa. I mean, I truly love Dear Evan Hansen. And I think, but I won't use that as my answer because that's lame. Because everyone thinks I'm being paid to say that, and I am, but I really mean it. Because I think it's a pretty perfect musical. I think my answer might be Little Shop of Horrors. I love that show, and it's just so fun. I don't think you can see one show for the rest of your life, and if it's like really sad, that wouldn't be great. I think Little Shop is just so much fun, and it's never not fun. I think that's my answer. I love Little Shop of Horrors.
Great. So we can find you online on Instagram at Andrew B. Feldman _. Was there another Andrew B. Feldman?
There is, and I've been thinking about reaching out to him. He's a lawyer. He's still on Instagram, and I've been thinking about reaching out. It seems like a lot of people do not like him because I get accidentally tagged in a lot of really mean things to Andrew Feldman on Twitter.
Andrew B. Feldman.
Maybe it's another politician. I don't know. But anyway.
Yes. Okay. So Instagram, Andrew B. Feldman _ on Twitter at Andrew B. Feldman. I guess that guy didn't go to Twitter and claim the name. You can get more of me and the Theater Podcast at thetheaterpodcast.com. Please show your support via thetheaterpodcast.com/Patreon. Theater _podcast on Instagram and Twitter, facebook.com/official theater podcast. Please share with your friends, tell your friends, rate the podcast. That's how we grow and get amazing guests like Andrew. And this is produced by Jillian Hockman, edited by Matthew Hendershot. And thank you to Jukebox the Ghost for the intro and outro music. Andrew, thank you so much. I really enjoyed this.
Thank you so much for having me.
You are such a good person.
Oh, thank you so much. That's so kind of you. Thank you so much for having me.
Take a deep breath, make the world a little colorful.